Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. As the 2025 NFL Draft draws near, the atmosphere is charged with tension, anticipation, and a touch of mystery. Every team in the league is now playing the most delicate game of strategy behind the scenes. For some franchises, this is a chance to make small adjustments to an already strong roster. For others, it's about saving a season before it even begins. But for the Miami Dolphins, this draft might just be the fork in the road that defines the next chapter of their identity. And depending on how it plays out, it could either secure their place as AFC contenders or send them spiraling into another year of unmet expectations. Miami fans have every reason to feel both excited and uneasy. There's undeniable talent on the roster. There's a head coach who has injected life into the team. There are stars on both sides of the ball. But as with every promising team, the small cracks are starting to show. And they could turn into fractures if the front office doesn't get this draft right. The Dolphins are not only fighting for a playoff return, they're quietly trying to keep their core together while also planning for the future, especially when it comes to some of the most critical spots on the roster. Most analysts agree that Miami's top priorities are clear: the offensive line, the secondary, and the running back room. These are the areas where depth is lacking, where injuries have caused chaos, and where inconsistency has held this team back in key moments. But there's one conversation bubbling just below the surface that could take center stage on draft night, and that's the future of quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. Since being drafted in 2020, Tua has had flashes of brilliance. He's made throws that only a handful of quarterbacks in the league can make. He's shown poise under pressure, resilience through adversity, and chemistry with one of the most explosive receiver duos in the game. But there's one thing he hasn't been able to do consistently: stay on the field. Injuries have haunted Tua's young career, and while he has led the Dolphins to a 38-24 record when healthy, the numbers without him are deeply concerning. In games where Tua couldn't suit up, Miami has gone just 9-15. Last season alone, the Dolphins went 2-4 without their starting quarterback. That kind of drop-off can destroy a team's momentum. It can unravel a promising season in a matter of weeks. That's where the intrigue begins. Because here's the thing: the Dolphins know this, and the rest of the league knows it too. Miami isn't just scouting offensive linemen and defensive backs. Behind closed doors, they've been looking at quarterbacks. Not at the very top of the draft, but in that curious range from round 3 to round 5. That's the territory where hidden gems have been found before, where teams quietly stash developmental talent who could end up becoming long-term answers. And according to multiple reports, including those from CBS's Jonathan Jones, Miami has shown interest in a handful of these mid-round signal callers. Let's pause there, because this is where speculation turns into something more serious. If you're a fan of the Dolphins, you have to ask yourself, what does it mean when your team is seriously evaluating quarterbacks in the middle of the draft? Is it just about finding a capable backup, or is it something bigger? Something that hints at doubts about Tua's long-term future in Miami? It's not like they haven't made moves to address the backup position. Zach Wilson, the former number 2 overall pick, was brought in this offseason. But let's be honest, Wilson hasn't exactly proven himself to be a reliable insurance policy. His 12-21 record as a starter tells a story of inconsistency, lost confidence, and flashes that never quite turned into production. If Tua goes down in 2025, and history says that's a real possibility, can Miami really trust Zach Wilson to keep them in contention? That's the million-dollar question. And maybe that's why the Dolphins have been kicking the tires on prospects like Tyler Show out of Louisville. Show has the kind of arm talent that turns heads during private workouts. He's battled through adversity in college, transferred schools, overcome injuries of his own, and still found ways to stand out. There's something about his mental makeup that seems to intrigue NFL scouts. Then there's Will Howard from Ohio State, who boasts size, mobility, and leadership. Quinn Ewers from Texas is another name that keeps popping up, especially for teams willing to take a swing on upside. Jalen Milroe from Alabama, electric athlete, still developing as a passer. Kyle McCord out of Syracuse, quietly efficient with a solid frame and a quick release. These are not the type of prospects you draft to be clipboard holders. These are guys you bring in because you think, just maybe, they could be something more. And with the picks that Miami currently holds, 1 in the 3rd round, 2 in the 4th, and 2 more in the 5th, the chessboard is set. They have the capital to move around, to target the player they like, and to take a calculated risk on a quarterback who might be ready to step in sooner than people expect. There's a very real possibility that the Dolphins will use one of those mid-round picks to bring in a quarterback, not just for depth, but for development, for insurance, for leverage, and maybe, just maybe, for the future. It's the kind of move that doesn't make headlines on day 1 of the draft, but could define the team's trajectory for years. Because if Tua stays healthy, everything runs smoothly. But if he doesn't, if history repeats itself, the Dolphins can't afford to be caught unprepared again. And that brings us to the deeper narrative unfolding in Miami. This isn't just about X's and O's or positional needs. This is about identity, about how a team sees itself when adversity hits, about whether they're willing to take bold steps now to avoid disaster later. If Miami chooses to wait until it's too late, the 2025 season could slip away just like some of the others have. But if they act now, with vision and clarity, they might not just survive another Tua injury. They might discover the quarterback who leads them into the next era. No one's saying Tua's time is up, but the whispers are growing louder. The questions are no longer just coming from the media. They're echoing inside the walls of the franchise itself. The Dolphins are on the edge of something, a pivot, a plan, a quiet revolution that could shake up their entire strategy. And the 2025 NFL draft might be the moment we see it unfold. So as we inch closer to draft night, keep your eyes on Miami. They might not hold a top 5 pick. They might not make the splashy move everyone expects. But make no mistake, they're at the center of one of the most fascinating storylines in this entire draft. Because when a team like this starts looking over its shoulder, wondering if its franchise quarterback can truly stay on the field, and quietly evaluating every backup option with laser focus, it tells you one thing loud and clear. The Dolphins are preparing for more than just the next season. They're preparing for the unknown, and they're not the only ones watching. Still with us? Then show some love. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments. What's your take on the Dolphins this week? It wasn't supposed to be like this. After all the noise, all the high-speed highlights, and all the expectations swirling around South Florida, the Miami Dolphins were expected to contend, to build on the flashes of brilliance they had shown, to finally put together something real. Instead, what we have now is a franchise teetering on the edge of a cliff, engulfed in confusion, controversy, and chaos. The Miami Dolphins are, in every sense of the word, a mess. A hot, smoldering, inexplicable mess. What was meant to be an off-season of fine-tuning and fortification has devolved into a saga of dysfunction. Tyreek Hill, the electrifying engine of the offense, finished his season with an ugly flameout, and his recent off-field incident has once again dragged the organization into the kind of headlines no franchise wants to see. And as if that wasn't enough, reports began to swirl about Miami's interest in trading away Jalen Ramsey, a move that felt less like a strategic pivot and more like a desperate act of self-sabotage. There was no warning and no logic, just whispers. And shock! Fans were left stunned, asking the only question that seems to matter anymore. What on earth is going on in Miami? But the front office didn't stop there. With the loss of veteran presence Calais Campbell in free agency, the Dolphins entered the most crucial part of the offseason already limping. Instead of aggressive pursuits of game changers, Miami settled for modest low-cost signings. Bargain! Bin additions that did little to inspire hope or fix glaring weaknesses. And glaring they are. This roster, as currently constructed, is riddled with holes. 2 starting cornerbacks are missing. A safety spot remains vacant. The interior of the defensive line needs reinforcements. There is no clear answer at starting. Guard! And beyond that, the overall depth on both defense and in the secondary is shockingly thin. This isn't the blueprint of a team ready to make a playoff run. This is a roster in need of triage. With a major wave of free agency behind them, the Dolphins now face the pressure of salvaging their offseason through the NFL draft. And it is not just important, it's absolutely critical. This isn't a case of adding talent for the future. This is about immediate survival. Fortunately, Miami does have draft capital to work with, 10 picks to be exact. That sounds promising, but the devil is in the details. Only 3 of those picks come in the top 3 rounds. The last of those, pick 98, is a compensatory pick at the very tail end of the 3rd round. Their first round selection sits at 13, followed by pick 48 in the 2nd round. Given the volume of needs and the limited prime picks, there's only one real move Miami should seriously consider trading down. It's not a glamorous solution, but this team doesn't need glamour right now. It needs bodies, it needs starters, it needs players who can contribute immediately. A trade down from pick 13 could yield additional picks on day 2, and in this year's draft class, that might be the difference between patching up this roster or watching it fall apart. The logic is simple. The Dolphins cannot afford to take a luxury pick. They cannot afford to draft a project. They need impact, and they need it now. Trading back gives them the opportunity to scoop up more of those mid-tier prospects who might not have the name, recognition, but possess the traits to step in and play. For Miami, this draft isn't about finding a superstar. It's about assembling a team capable of competing in one of the most unforgiving divisions in football. It's about buying time. It's about buying hope. And the situation is ripe for such a move. Sitting at pick 13 places the Dolphins in a fascinating position. They're just after the last of the desperate quarterback-hungry teams, with the New Orleans Saints picking at 9 likely being the final team in that tier. If a player like Jackson Dart or Shedeur Sanders begins to slip, and make no mistake, both carry intrigue, Miami could become a prime trade-up target for a team like Pittsburgh, sitting at 21, or even a team looking to leapfrog the mid-round. Chaos. But even if the quarterbacks are off the board by 13, there's still a chance for Miami to leverage their spot. Names like Ashton Jeanty or Tedero McMillan could still be lingering, names that, while not automatic picks for the Dolphins, might tempt another franchise to move up. And if Miami can flip that pick into multiple assets on day 2, suddenly they have the firepower to chase 4, maybe even 5 potential starters in this draft. That's the kind of math this team has to do. It's cold, calculated, but essential. Because this is not a team one player away from contending. This is not a team that can afford to waste a first-round pick on a gamble. This is a team that is fighting for its identity, for its legitimacy, for its very direction. The Dolphins have been drifting, caught between competing visions and inconsistent execution. And now, the cost of indecision is mounting. For General Manager Chris Grier, this is a make-or-break moment. He's had his chances. He's had his swings. Some have connected, sure, but far too many have missed. And in an NFL that thrives on results, patience is not an infinite resource. Mike McDaniel, the quirky and creative head coach, also finds himself under the microscope. His schemes are innovative. His energy is contagious. But innovation doesn't mean much when the roster can't keep up. This season might be the last chance for this regime to prove that their vision is more than just smoke or mirrors. Owner Stephen Ross has already made it clear. Mediocrity will not be tolerated. The status quo is no longer acceptable. And if that's truly the case, then this roster needs to be overhauled. Not next year. Not at the trade deadline. Now. That's the mandate. And for Grier and McDaniel, it's not just about surviving the draft. It's about using it to rewrite the narrative before it's too late. The drama is thick in Miami. The offseason that was supposed to set the stage for contention has instead cracked open a Pandora's box of doubt and dysfunction. Every move, every whisper, every rumor now feels like part of a larger unraveling. There's still time to change the course. There's still time to pivot. But it starts with the draft. It starts with a plan that prioritizes substance over splash. It starts with humility, the kind that accepts trading back as a necessary step, even if it bruises some egos along the way. There is no safety net anymore. The margin for error has vanished. And if the Dolphins don't get this right, if they fail to capitalize on the opportunity in front of them, it won't just be another lost season. It will be the end of an era, one built on speed, hype, and promise, but ultimately undone by confusion, mismanagement, and unmet expectations. The clock is ticking in Miami, and this time, there may be no more second chances. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it. With a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up!